We live in an era where we have lost faith in our Congress's ability to manage our taxes and needs. That is why we as a people need to have tax increases in particular. And right now I'm talking the sales tax increases on a federal level if we chose to invoke them, or income taxes should be something the people pass, but as a plurality. The income tax right now is not trusted, seen as a backdoor mechanism for people to get what they want, and the details are buried in monumental bills. Furthermore, when you have politicians coming out, they run on campaigns of no new taxes, knowing very well that means they trap themselves in inflexible positions in the future. This leads to gridlock. No compromise can then be put forward in a reasonable way to voters. If we actually have voters vote and concur on tax increases, this means that voters will become more aware of what the needs are for the tax increase. Any tax proposal with reason can be put forward and voted down if not reasonable, and we will return the power of the purse strings back to the more plurality that intended by the framers of the Constitution. This allows compromising positions to put forward and prevents a filibusters. This also
allows your time's up. Your time's up.
Okay, good. You're right.
Okay, all right. Yeah, wait, hold on. Stay there, because you have another speech.
Oh, okay, good. Oh,
so okay. So the really obvious argument here is basically three words, right? California is bankrupt. And I think this is a really compelling argument because it shows that people generally tend to want all the benefits without having to pay any of the costs. I think this is just naturally true for humans. I think we generally want to have things for free. In fact, the best word to put on an advertising slogan is the word free. So given that that's how I think human nature tends to work, we've seen this again and again, I don't think it's true that people are going to become more fiscally responsible or scrutinize the budget just because they've been given the power of the purse strings. I think what instead people are going to do is consistently vote down tax increases and consistently vote for more services. This happened in California, and now California is basically bankrupt as a state. Like, the municipal default risk on California is higher than any other state in the union. I think that's extremely problematic. It would be extremely problematic if the entire country looked like that, especially following the S&P downgrade of our treasury rating. Given that other countries already distrust the stability of the U.S. financial system, I think it would be enormously detrimental to lock ourselves into a system where we cut off an enormous source of revenue that could very well help the economy recover at this point in time. I think that cutting off taxes will only make the federal government do one thing, and that's going to be send more U.S. capital abroad, because they're going to be forced to turn to investment rather than tax revenue. That's enormously problematic.
We're going forward, and you have a mechanism that you can take to the people a vote. They can then weigh in tax increases versus the services they get. Now, that does not mean that you need to say you can vote yourself something for nothing. If you look at California, for example, what they did was they passed restrictive clauses that didn't allow their government to vote new taxes. They made it so that the local tax could not be increased, even because a populace said it couldn't, and the government couldn't do it, and the populace could not be brought back to vote on that issue again. They weren't asked to ever vote on it again. The issue of responsibility, fiscal responsibility, is not just money in, but also money out. But that is also saying that if the money needs to come in, the only way to bring it in a way that people will be happy with is that they have a chance to vote on it. And California may be bankrupt, but the whole federal system's not looking very fiscally healthy either, and it has not had a plurality of vote for tax increases. So I don't know if that argument is very compelling. It may not make it. What may make people more fiscally responsible is other aspects of it, but the voting of what you get in money will at least make them aware.
So it's true that tax increases haven't really been in the federal budget in the past few years, but I think that's more not necessarily because people in general don't feel that tax increases are good or bad. I think the majority of Americans are extremely uninformed to this degree. I think the more likely reason for why we have gridlock in government right now is because the Tea Party and not just the Tea Party, but both the Democrats and Republicans have been filibustering like crazy. Like, we just have been really fixated on not doing anything in the past few years. But that's a separate issue. But I think that the analysis about people being able to individually evaluate the I guess like the quality of the services is a little bit flawed, because I think the average American doesn't actually know how good or bad the services are. I think only the people who tend to receive these services are really in a position to evaluate them, and the majority of Americans aren't on the types of services that the federal government uses tax money to allocate, like Social Security, like welfare, and that kind of thing. Given that that's true, I think the majority of Americans don't have any firsthand exposure to these, tend to think that Social Security is, like a pyramid scheme, or maybe it is, I don't know, but tend to think that a lot of these social welfare programs are things that we could do without, and that's just not the case. And just because people don't have firsthand experience to these things doesn't necessarily mean that what they perceive is necessarily the truth. So given that, I think a lot of people will vote to cut a lot of programs, and when they link that with tax increases, they would tend to vote down tax increase. I think that this could have far-reaching detrimental effects on the American system as a whole. I think it'd be bad to give the people this much power, as much as I am for power.